Hey and welcome, this time it's the 9th episode of me learning Protoss. So it's been a while since I uploaded a video, mostly because I got some issues with my old PC and had some hard drive issues, and it was all around a pretty old PC, so I decided to get a new one. And this one should be much better. I haven't figured out all the settings yet, so maybe we get some audio issues, but we'll figure this out. Anyways. In this game, I'm playing a PvP and I try to execute the build order I made a video about a few weeks ago. It's the PvP Save DT opener. I put a link somewhere on the screen, you should be able to click it. It's not exactly the perfect build I'm going for in this game, as my opponent went for a quick Robotics Facility, which leaves me pretty much with transitioning out of the build, because my opponent would have an observer ready for the DTs. So in this game it's one of the transitions out of the Save DT build. I put those all in the actual build order video. If you want to watch it, it's probably best to watch the build order first. But anyways, so this build opens with a fairly safe opening with a gateway first into a Nexus and then into a Cybercore, which should be able to hold all aggressions your opponent can throw at you in the early game, except some major proxy Gs or something like that. But at least if your opponent plays somewhat standard, this build not just looks absolutely standard, but from the transition you will see that it's actually a pretty standard build up until the point where you have to decide if you want to get the DTs or not. So my first scout, so their scouting is very important with this build. The first scout is the probe scout. I send it out directly after building my own Nexus, and it has only one job, and this is to finding out if my opponent went for a natural base himself. And then there is the second scout. This is the first adept we build. We use it to scout with the shade. Also the probe scout we send out has to build a proxy pylon. This is necessary. This is the only investment we have to commit before we know if we can execute this build. So I send out my adept, send it to the main base or natural ramp depending on the map, and send in the shade just to scout out what the first tech building of my opponent is. So here I click on the building on the left side. I see, okay, it's a Robotics Facility. I lose the adept, but this is not very important at this point. Now I have to abort the mission. So normally I would go for the Dark Shrine and would go from there, but as I see the quick Robotics Facility from my opponent, I have to go for robotics of my own, as DTs would not be able to deal lots, if any, damage. So the transition out of this is, if you wouldn't know that I went for this DT build, you wouldn't even guess that it might be one of aggressive cheesy DT build. So it looks standard, and so I can play it just standard, as I wouldn't have gotten the idea of going for DTs anyways. As I said, the only investment we made was this proxy pylon, but this doesn't really hurt us much or at all. I'm not 100% sure what is the best transition out of this, but I think it is the Robotics Facility of your own. I think you could go eventually, or maybe could go for a Blink-Stalker all in instead of getting a Robo Bay, but I think the standard play and the macro play is the better way to go. So I went for a few gateways, Robotics Facility. I'm not 100% sure on how many gateways you need to take your third with this build without risking of getting overwhelmed by your opponent. So I'm getting currently 5 gateways and observer out before I expand down to the low ground for my third base. And the observer is mostly to scout out his army composition. In this case I see him go for Stalkers and Disruptors and lots of gateways. So I think that I need to expand anyways, as I didn't manage to send my observer down to the third base location of my opponent. So I don't know if my opponent has already his third base down or not. But with the unit count I saw, it isn't much likely that he has his already down. So I'm thinking that I'm ahead in the macro part of the game, but probably behind in the unit count. So I got Robotics Bay for my own Disruptors, obviously, and but I know that I'm obviously behind in the Disruptor count, so I'm trying something I'm experimenting lately with, and this is going Chargelot Archon against Disruptor Blink-Stalkers in PvP. This is something I is more from the Zerg part, as I played a lot of Zerg in Heart of the Swarm mostly. So and play some Zerg in unranked games as well. So in the Zerg, when you play Zerg, you want to get speedlings out against Disruptors, as it is hard for your opponent to micro against this fast moving units that also are melee and run onto your Disruptors. So you can't really use the Disruptor shots to counter melee units, as you would probably hit your own units if your micro isn't really good. And in the leagues I play, which is at this point high platinum to diamond, this opponent is a diamond opponent. I don't think that his micro is that good that he can micro his Disruptors against massive amounts of fast moving melee units. So this is what I'm experimenting currently with. This is lots of Zealots, Chargelots, and obviously because we dump so much minerals into the Zealots, we can need something where we can spend our gas on, which is since I don't know, Wings of Liberty is pretty much the High Templar and the Archon part. So I got 2 Disruptors, but I'm going away from Disruptor tech at this point almost completely. So I mostly go for Chargelots and High Templars with Storm and some Stalkers mixed in. I got Blink as well, I think. Yes, I got Blink. I got it earlier as I transitioned out of the DT's build. Here we are at the first engagement. I think there's a pretty good, you can see you have to bait out some Disruptor shots obviously, and then you have to split your army, which you let the Zealots charge in and let him have to deal with the Zealots first and keep the expansive part of your army, the Stalkers and the High Templars, in the back, and micro those against the Disruptor shots. So my opponent isn't the best in micro. I don't really can judge how good his micro is, but I don't think that this would be viable against, I don't know, masters or grandmaster players, as their micro is obviously much better as the micro of this diamond player. So I'm not sure if my experimented strategy of Chargelot Archon against Disruptor Blink-Stalker is viable on higher levels, but at least on my level it works pretty good so far. From here on out, my opponent lost pretty much his whole army, where I got still some units standing, which is more importantly, I didn't even use my disruptors, so I got those, and I even saved the 2 immortals I got earlier. Yeah, there isn't much more to say about this game, other than maybe microing up a small ramp. Obviously you have to let the Chargelots go first and don't get stuck in the ramp. But other than that, I put a link to the build order guide in the outro as well as in the description. Other than that, thanks for watching and maybe see you in the next one.